I still don't like fireworks. That's the part nobody understands when I try to explain it. People think I'm going to say I don't like the noise, and I let them think that, because the real reason takes too long, and it makes me sound like I never got over something. Maybe I didn't, but it's not the sound. It's the way everyone looks up at the same time. That's what gets me. That 1 second where an entire street tilts its head back and stops paying attention to anything at ground level. I didn't notice it at all the first time. That's the thing. Looking back, I must have walked right past the reason none of it made sense, and I didn't think anything of it, because who would? This was the summer I was house-sitting for my aunt. She had a place 2 neighborhoods over from mine, nicer than mine, the kind of street where the houses have those little decorative flags that people actually change out for the seasons. She and my uncle went to the lake every year for the 4th, and every year they asked me to stay at the house and feed the cat, and I always said yes, because it was easier than mine, and the AC actually worked. I want to be clear that nothing about that week felt wrong. I keep going back over it, looking for the moment it should have, and I can't find one. It was just a normal week at somebody else's house. The cat's name was Deacon, and Deacon hated me. I'll get back to that. So, the 4th lands on a Thursday that year, and the whole street had been building toward it for days. People setting up tents. Somebody 2 doors down had one of those inflatable bounce houses in the front yard that ran off a generator, and the generator hummed all day, and I remember being mildly annoyed by it, in the way you get annoyed by things that aren't your problem. I'd been leaving the windows open because the evenings were nice, and honestly because the house made these settling noises at night, and having the outside sounds in made it feel less empty. That's a detail I've thought about a lot since. The open windows. The afternoon of the 4th, I ran to the store for ice, and when I came back, the cat was sitting in the front window. Which, fine, cats sit in windows. But Deacon didn't do that. Deacon lived under the guest bed. In 4 days, I had seen the cat exactly twice, and both times were at the food bowl. So I noticed him in the window, and I remember thinking, And then I remember thinking he was probably watching the bounce house kids, and I carried the ice inside and forgot about it. That's the honest version. I made up a reason and moved on. People do that constantly. I did it the entire night. By around 8, the street was full. Not just my aunt's neighbors. People had parked all up and down both sides, folding chairs on lawns, coolers, the smell of everybody's grill mixing together. I didn't really know anyone, so I did that thing where you sit on the porch with a drink and nod at people and feel like you're part of it without actually being part of it. It was nice. I want that to be on the record too. For a couple hours it was genuinely nice. The fireworks the town does officially don't start until it's fully dark, but people on the street had been setting off their own since the sun was still up. Little ones, then bigger ones. And here's where I have to be careful about what I actually remember versus what I've reconstructed, because after a certain point, the whole street was just noise and flashing, and I can't tell you the order of things cleanly. What I can tell you is that at some point I went inside to use the bathroom, and the guest room door was closed. I had not closed it. I'm sure of that. The way you're sure of dumb, small things. I hadn't closed it because I'd been walking past it all week and using the hallway, and the door was always open against the wall. I remembered the little rubber stopper thing on the baseboard, and now it was shut. And my first thought, I swear to you, my first and only thought was that the cat had somehow pushed it. I didn't even fully form the thought. It just floated up and settled the question, and I went and used the bathroom. When I came out, Deacon was sitting in the hallway, staring at the closed door. Not at me, at the door. I want to explain what that did to me, and I can't really, because on paper it's nothing. A cat looking at a door. But there's a difference between how an animal looks at a thing it's curious about and how an animal looks at a thing, and I had never seen this cat look at anything. He'd spent 4 days pretending I didn't exist, and now every part of him was pointed at that door like a compass needle. His tail was doing a thing, low and slow. I opened the door. The room was empty. Guest bed, dresser, the window, closed, which was correct. I hadn't opened that one. Nothing. I stood there feeling stupid, and a firework went off close enough that the window buzzed, and I flinched, and I laughed at myself, and I left the door open and went back outside. Deacon did not come with me. He stayed in the hall. I've thought a lot about whether I actually smelled anything in that room. I think I want to have smelled something, cigarettes or sweat or just the wrong kind of warm, because it would make me feel less stupid. But I honestly don't think I did. The room was just a room. That's almost worse. Outside, the official show had started, and this is the part where the street basically ceased to function as a place where you could notice anything. Everyone was up. Everyone was looking one direction. The sky was going off in these long, overlapping booms that you felt in your chest, and the light kept turning everybody's faces green and red and white, and then dropping them back into dark. I stood on the porch. I remember a woman, a few houses down, had a baby with those big ear protectors on, and the baby was asleep against her shoulder through all of it, and I thought that was sweet. And in one of the flashes, I saw someone standing at the side of my aunt's house. Between the house and the fence, in that narrow strip where the trash cans go and the AC unit sits, there was a person. Just the shape of one. The flash lit them for a fraction of a second, and then it was dark again, and my eyes had that after-image burn, where you're not sure if you saw a thing or the ghost of a thing. I waited for the next flash. Nothing there. Third flash. Nothing. And I told myself it was a shadow from the AC unit, or one of the neighbors cutting through, or a kid chasing another kid, because kids were running everywhere. But I went and stood at the corner of the porch, where I could see down that side of the house, and I stayed there through the whole rest of the show. And I didn't really watch the sky anymore. I watched the side of the house. I told myself I was just getting a better view. I wasn't. When the finale came, that long stretch where they just empty everything into the sky at once, and the whole street was screaming and clapping, I had my back to all of it, looking at a strip of grass and 2 trash cans, and I couldn't have told you why. The show ended. You know that specific quiet after fireworks, the way the smoke hangs and everyone's ears are ringing, and the clapping dies out, and then it's just car doors and folding chairs scraping, and people saying goodnight. The street started emptying out, and in all that ordinary motion of people packing up, the thing that was wrong finally landed on me, and it landed sideways, through the cat. I went inside, and Deacon was at the guest room door again. It was closed again. I had left it open. I had left it open on purpose the second time. I'd made a point of it. I even remembered thinking the stopper thing would hold it. And it was shut, and the cat was sitting in front of it in the dark, with his tail going low and slow. And this time, when I came down the hall, he did look at me, just for a second, and then back at the door, and I have never in my life so badly not wanted to open a door. I called my uncle! It was 11 at night, and they were at the lake, and he didn't pick up, and I stood in that hallway with the phone against my ear, listening to it ring, and I made myself open the door while it rang, because I think I wanted the sound of the ringing in the room with me. Empty. Again. But the window was open now. The window I had checked. The window that had been closed and latched an hour before, when I looked in the room the first time. It was open about 8 inches, the screen pushed out and hanging by one corner, and the little decorative curtain was moving, just barely, in the night air. And on the carpet under the window, there was a print. not a full one. The edge of a shoe, in that fine grey ash that had been drifting down onto everything all night, tracked in off the grass and pressed into the beige carpet, in a shape that was very clearly the front half of a boot, pointed into the room. I don't remember deciding to leave. I remember being in my car. I remember I had the cat, which means at some point I picked up a cat that hated me and he let me, which tells you something about the state both of us were in. I drove to my own place, and I called the police from there, and they were kind about it, and they did send someone to walk the house, and of course by then there was nobody, and the honest red is that somebody used the loudest, most distracted 40 minutes of the entire year to go in and out of a window on a street where 100 people were standing outside, and they didn't take anything, or they got interrupted, or they weren't there for anything you could take. I don't know. Nobody knows. My aunt got a better alarm system, and we don't really talk about it. But I think about the first time I opened that door, when the room was empty and the window was closed, and I felt stupid, because the door had already been shut once by then. Something had already closed it, and I stood in that empty room with a firework rattling the glass, and I told myself it was the cat, and I turned my back, and I went outside to look at the sky like everybody else. Ha! The second one I know less well, because it happened to somebody I used to work with, a guy named Marcus, and he only told me the whole thing once, at a work thing, a couple drinks in, and then never brought it up again. So some of this is his words, and some of it is me filling gaps, and I'll try to flag which is which. Marcus lived alone in one of those big apartment complexes, the kind built around a central courtyard with a pool, 3 floors of identical doors on identical walkways. He was on the 3rd floor. He was, by his own description, not a social guy. He said it plainly. No self-pity about it, just a fact. He knew maybe 2 people in the building to nod at. And the reason that matters is that on the 4th, the complex did a thing where they opened up the pool and courtyard for a party, and Marcus, who never went to anything, went to that one. He couldn't tell me why. He said his sister had been on him about getting out more, and it was downstairs and free. So the courtyard's full. Strangers mostly. The pool, a rented speaker, somebody's playlist. And you can see the whole complex from down there. All 3 floors of walkways wrapping around. All the doors. And Marcus is standing there with a drink he doesn't want, doing the thing you do, and he looks up at his own floor, just idly. And his door is open! Now his first thought was completely reasonable, and it's the thought I would have had. He thought he hadn't shut it right. Those doors, the cheap apartment doors, you have to pull them till they catch, and if you don't, they drift. So he figures he pulled his shut. It drifted. No big deal. He'll go up in a minute. And this is the part that he said quietly, the part I've never forgotten. He said the reason he didn't go up right away is that from down in the courtyard, in all the noise and the party, going up to close his own door felt like a bigger deal than it was. Like it would be admitting he wasn't really at the party. He was just a guy who left his door open. So he stayed. For his own dumb social reasons, he stayed down there another 20 minutes with an open door on the 3rd floor, and he'd glance up at it every so often. Dark rectangle, nothing. And then the town fireworks started somewhere off past the buildings, and everybody in the courtyard turned to watch them come up over the roofline, and Marcus turned too, and when he turned back and looked up at his floor, his door was closed. He said he stood there trying to make it make sense. Because a door that drifts open doesn't close itself. There's no wind that pulls a heavy apartment door shut against its own weight. And he ran through it. Maybe maintenance, maybe a neighbor being nice. Maybe he'd misjudged and it was a different door that had been open. He counted the doors. He counted them twice. It was his. And it was shut now. And it had been open before. And somewhere in the 20 minutes he'd been standing there, feeling self-conscious. Something had gone in and pulled it closed from the inside. Here's the detail that makes me believe him, because it's not a scary detail, it's a stupid human one. He said he didn't go up, not right away. He said he got another drink first. He stood at the little folding table with the bottles, and he poured a drink he didn't want, because his hands needed something to do, and because as long as he was pouring a drink, he wasn't a man who had to go upstairs and open that door. He said that was the most scared he's ever been in his life, and he spent it making a rum and coke. When he finally went up, he did it during the loudest part of the show, and I asked him why, later, why he'd pick the loud part, and he said he didn't pick it. He just noticed afterward that he'd waited for it, like some part of him wanted cover too, wanted the noise, the same as whoever was up there. He got to his door, and he put his hand on it, and he could feel the base of the fireworks in the metal, and he opened it. The apartment was empty, and everything was where he left it, and the sliding door to his little third-floor balcony was open. He never left that open. He hated bugs, he said. He was militant about that door, and the screen was slid back, and there was that grey firework ash on the carpet, just inside the track, and a single clean handprint, low, on the glass, at about the height where you'd brace yourself climbing over a railing. And Marcus lived on the third floor. There's no walkway on the balcony side. Whatever left through that door left over the railing, 3 stories up, during the fireworks, because Marcus was on his way up the stairs and coming in the front, and the only way out that wasn't going to walk straight into him was the way that shouldn't have been possible. He said the last thing, the thing that ended the story and ended him telling it, was that he leaned over the balcony to look down, because he had to, and there was nothing down there. No body, no ladder, nothing, just the party still going, all those people around the pool, and not one of them looking up. I asked him what he did after. He said he moved. I asked if they ever figured out who. He said no, and then he said, the thing that I think about more than any of it, more than the boot print in my aunt's carpet, more than any of it. He said, the part that gets me isn't that somebody was in there. It's that they closed the door. Somebody's in your place and they take the time to close the door so it looks normal from outside. So you'll stay down at the party, so you won't come up. And then he changed the subject and we talked about work. So that's why I don't like fireworks. Not the noise. It's that the noise is the whole point. It's the one night a year everyone agrees to look up at the same time and stop listening. And I can't help thinking that if you were a certain kind of person, a patient one, you wouldn't see all that light in the sky. You'd see a whole street of open windows and unlocked doors and people with their backs turned, and you'd have a good 40 minutes, and nobody at all, would hear a thing. The next time it's the 4th, and everyone around you tilts their head back at the same moment, do me a favor, don't look up with them. Look at your own house.